On this week's episode of 1 Hour Intern, I learned from Grammy award-winning duo with over 10 multi-platinum singles and billions of streams, the Chainsmokers. So to open up, let's just get some context about you in the world right now. What have you guys been working on during quarantine and the COVID months of our life?
You want to go, Drew?
We actually, strangely enough, we have been on tour for the past 8 years, basically since we met, touring as much as possible. We've kind of gone everywhere in the world, tried to play for as many fans as possible, and that's been, I think on average like 100. I think last year we played 180 shows between our arena tour in North America, and then international festival season. And then we do 50 shows a year in Las Vegas at the Wynn at Excess. So that's kind of where we were coming from. And in the beginning of this year, we're like, we need to just kind of take a pause. Maybe we'll just do Vegas, which is an easy flight from LA, but the rest of the touring we kind of put on mute. And we were going to take this year, even pre-COVID, to just work on music and regroup. And so, I mean, it's pretty crazy what happened in the world at this time, after kind of making that decision for ourselves. But we spent our time doing just that. Like, Alex and I have been investing in startups for the past, 5 years. And we decided to start our first venture capital fund. And so we're working on that during the day and music by night.
And during this time, you took a media kind of blackout. Is that just so you could focus on this, or were there any other reasons behind not using any social media at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great reasons not to use social media, but especially when you're being creative, you know what I mean? I think it allows you to focus on the things that are important. We want to give people a break, kind of in people's faces for the last years pretty consistently. And, we wanted this next part of our career to really be kind of like a reset button for that and to mark the start of something really new and important and fresh. And we felt like, giving people that break was important, and also important for ourselves to really focus on the art and what that message was. So then when it comes back, it really feels like something, important and different and drastic. That said, mentally, I feel better than ever. I mean, not having to be on, posting Instagram photos feels like a really nice break. So I don't know. It's nice.
Yeah. And you said that it's kind of a reset and does that mean that there'll be stylistic changes and kind of message changes, or is it just kind of a mental reset?
I think it's both. I think it's going to be definitely a musical reset. This is the most comprehensive, I guess, art release that we will be doing in terms of not only changing our sound. We're changing our sound, but I think we're pulling out the best parts of what we've ever done in this project. And, there also will be an aesthetic reset. And, we have a bigger vision with this, just the whole package of this album, than I think we've had in any of our other approaches to our past releases.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now that we've kind of set some context of what you guys have been working on recently, since no one's heard anything from you in a while, let's jump back to the beginning. So for Alex, it's 2002, and Drew, it's 2007. You guys are 17, my age. What was life like?
Wow, 2002. I was a total loser. No, I was kidding. I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess getting ready to graduate, high school. I think you have a good idea at the time of what you think the world is going to be like for yourself and what you are going to try to do, but you quickly realize that you actually have no idea. And I think that thing was me going to school for the first year as a freshman. You don't have any of your friends anymore. You have to make a new friend group. What are your interests? Where do you go to hang out? What do you do? I at the time thought I was going to be an art dealer. And like looking back now, it's kind of funny and laughable to think about it like that. But I think at that point in your life, as a senior in high school, you kind of feel like you have such a good grip of your plan as you move forward into life. And I can tell myself, if I look back then, it's like you got at least another decade before you figure it out, buddy.
Drew?
Yeah, and for me, when I was 17, I grew up in Maine, And Maine's a beautiful place, and I'm thankful to be there from there. But I was very anxious to see something else even before college, and I was really lucky enough to go to this public school that really encouraged people to go abroad, and I really wanted to speak Spanish, and so I was really interested in going to South America, and I ended up going to Argentina. And I had thought that I was going to be in a city like Buenos Aires, and I wasn't really specific about where I wanted to be in Argentina, and kind of probably a little bit ignorant about the geography there. And I ended up getting placed in this town called right outside of El Bolson, which is basically the middle of the Andes Mountains. So I moved to the other side of the planet, but I basically moved to a very similar place that was similar to Maine, where I was from. Very small town vibes. And one thing that was really impactful that happened to me there, in addition to learning Spanish, was when you're 17, 16, kids go to the clubs, you can drink, you can party. And when I went to the club with kind of like the friends that I had made in Argentina, they were listening to very different music. They were listening to, Daft Punk and the beginning of David Guetta. This before he had really crossed over into like mainstream American culture. And most of my friends at home were still listening to like the whole like 50 Cent and Lil Wayne and artists that I still love too. But I kind of got exposure to this genre that became my passion as soon as I moved home. I was like, I played in a band my entire life, and I had heard all these new sounds, and I didn't know how to make them. And so I bought this program called Ableton and spent all my free time doing that, and I still use it today.
So I do want to go back to, or I want to get back to kind of how you started being a DJ. But even before that, when you were at home, what were your parents teaching you?
I mean, I was just, in my case, it was just my mom. And we had a kind of crazy ride previous to that with all sorts of personal things. But, I think it's important that your parents like instill, those core values that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And, and mine were like, obviously treating people kindly and being fair and, accepting everybody. And just like the one thing I think I remember her saying more than anything was that money isn't happiness. Which taught me to like really value the relationships I had around me, and and fostering those things, which I've definitely taken with me, throughout my life.
And were there any particular relationships?
Sorry.
Oh, no, please go.
No, go for it.
Alex, were there any particular relationships that you made when you were younger that kind of your mom's influence helped you get, but that were really important to you and influential in your life?
Weirdly, like my friends were always the most important people in my life. I didn't have, my mom was definitely like, the person I looked up to, and my dad when he was around, but that he was gone. He was out of the picture by the time I was 13. So, for me, it was like, I really just relied on like my friends around me, and having, them be a part of my life and kind of guide me. And, obviously some for the better and some for the worse. But that was, I never really had a mentor growing up. And I don't think we to this day, we really still don't, we haven't practiced that. We have lots of people we turn to advice, but that's why I think, we kind of had ended up where we are because, hospitality, entertainment is such a big part of those things, and fostering those relationships throughout your life. And that's like always been the most important thing to me, is like surrounding yourself with good people that, inspire you or are honest with you. And moving forward from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. My situation, my parents were very adamant on me pursuing something that I was passionate about. They really didn't care. My parents don't care about money. They just care about overall happiness. And, I was very entrepreneurial from a very young age. From basically since I was 12 years old, I wanted to start a business. And music was also my other passion that I was doing 50% of the time. And I was spending, like I said, since I came back from Argentina, I was spending all my time trying to create dance music. But I also was very I'd started a bunch of like an eBay business, and, was very like, I was addicted to reading about other founders and entrepreneurs and how they got their start. And, I was thinking, that the music business wouldn't be a realistic career. I didn't even know there was a music business. I just knew I liked music. I didn't realize there was a business behind it. And, my mom, not only did she encourage me to go to South America, which really changed my life, but, both her and my dad were very, like I said, I wanted to go to school for something in business. And my parents were very much like, please don't ignore the fact that you love music and you're good at it. And, actually found this music business program at Syracuse that was really small. I don't know how I got in. I got in off the wait list, and called the Bandier program. And that was like, my mom was kind of like, look, like, I know you love business, but here's like a music business type program. And I just like, yeah, you should apply it and keep your mind open to that. So I've always really like appreciated that they've been very adamant about their values being something that is, I feel like a lot of parents probably just want their kids to find a secure job, which is, rightfully so, but they were very adamant that I found something that, worked for me, and catered to my passions.
For those people whose parents do want them to find a secure job, but they have another passion, what advice would you give them?
Do both. I feel like, even to this day, Alex and I have, we have we've pursued everything that we've been interested in. And, we work 24/7 still, even in these COVID times. Alex and I, in addition to our music career, we have a TV and film production company. Our first movie just came out this week. It's in theaters, called Words on a Bathroom Wall, which we're very proud of. And then, like I said, we just started a venture capital fund. It's a $30 million fund. In addition to that, Alex and I invest in a ton of real estate. We've always just been like, do everything. Don't just go for one thing. We love the side hustle. We love, I think it all comes from having like a thirst for knowledge and wanting to learn about the world and how other people have chosen to live their lives. And we've been fortunate enough to found each other that, we're both very like-minded. But, any kid that's like out there that's not really sure what to do, you don't have to choose one. Do both. Like I love the side hustle, like I said before, and just because there is it all comes down to how hard you're willing to work. And if you want to work, you don't have to choose just one thing.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any stories in particular for either of you that stand out as influential stories from your young childhood, pre-high school?
Yeah, I mean, God, there's so many. It's funny how like life lessons, sort of stick with you. I remember that my dad, when I was really young, taught me the phrase quid pro quo, which is like, I'll do something for you if you do something for me, which I think is like kind of the backbone of like good business, obviously. And, I've carried that with me through my life. But one story that's kind of funny, I got hired to DJ like I probably was like 14 at the time, DJ like a grown-up party in our town, and it was like a disco theme party with like all here's my mom right here. I'm on a get out of here. Get out of here, mom. And I remember playing, the disco party. I'd never really listened to a lot of disco music. I was 14 years old. So they provided me with like all these CDs that they loved, and then like marked the songs that they wanted to hear based on like a chart, like how many X's it had. And I remember like playing it, everyone was having fun. And then I played some song, and this woman comes up to me. She goes, "You are the worst DJ ever. This is a terrible disco song." And I was like, what? Like, that was so disheartening. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like 14 years old playing like a disco party for everyone's behalf. And it was just funny because like, I think like at the moment I was like, man, like I'm not good at this at all, but also like taught me that like, you're not going to be able to please, you're not going to be able to please everybody. But look at the bigger picture, and everyone was dancing and having fun, and you know what I mean? And I think like throughout life, that's something that stuck with me.
We want Motown.
Yeah. My mom says they wanted Motown.
In the rest of your career, how have you dealt with naysayers and people who have kind of been against your music or just kind of not fans, I guess?
Yeah, I think we live in the day and age of cancel culture, and everyone has their own platform. And, like it's funny, everyone has a voice, but they also on that same platform, they're watching other people like living their best life, or at least posting their best life, and it makes everyone feel insecure. And so being aware of like that everyone is going through their own thing and not taking everything too seriously, I think is important. But obviously that doesn't mean people doubting you doesn't feel bad. But I feel like Alex and I have always done a good job at using that as fuel. And we've entered a lot of new spaces that people, including in the beginning, like, our first song was like a joke parody song that went viral on the internet that didn't sound like any of the other music we were making. And I know, like, while it was charting and we got a record deal and a publishing deal and all these things that you want as a musician, like, I felt like all of our idols in the industry that we were trying to become a part of, like, kind of doubted that we would be anything more than that viral song. And Alex and I just decided, like, we got to bet on ourselves and just keep grinding and not get discouraged. And there's been so many times of, just people not agreeing with the decision that you made, or they don't think that you're good enough, or, maybe they feel bad about themselves, so they put you down. And I mean, we exist very much in on the internet and social media. So there's a lot of that, as much, and there's obviously more praise, but the negative comments definitely can speak louder sometimes. And I think that you definitely develop thick skin, but also, we know that what we're doing is good and relates to our inherent being, and that's all you can be in this world. So just remembering that and kind of using, any kind of lack of enthusiasm around like what you believe is right that you're doing, using that as fuel, I think has worked really well for us.
Alex, is there anything that you would add to what Drew said or kind of change?
I mean, I think that anything you're going to do, you're going to meet, critics and adversity. If you're doing something important or special, you know what I mean? I don't think there's a single thing out there that's beloved by everybody. And, I think it's important to stay true to what you believe. And that's why having a great group of people around you to support you is really important. It sucks. I mean, there's no like two ways to cut it. Like, you don't like hearing people that dislike or disagree with things that are important to you. But, I think, like Drew said, through that process, you can really learn a lot about yourself and ultimately become a better person. If you take it to heart and try to see through it. And I think that's something that, is important that society in general do, is listen to one another. And, and you might totally disagree with someone's point of view, but if you can try to empathize a little bit with their point of view, at least you can begin to understand why they feel that way. And then hopefully, find some sort of resolution. But that said, some things it's tough. I mean, music is something very personal to people that make it, like ourselves. So, when you're making art and someone doesn't like it, it can sting a little bit differently than making a business that someone thinks, isn't helpful to them. So, it comes in different levels. But I think, if you had told me in high school that we would be the center of a news cycle story or whatever, or, and live through it and be okay, I don't know if I would have believed you, because like in high school, someone walked down the hallway and telling you that your pants look stupid can like ruin your whole, month. And, I think it's important to like, treat people nicer and know that those little types of remarks can really affect people around you. I mean, the film that Drew touched on earlier is all about mental illness and the stigma around it. And, and the overall message is that like, we need to be more supportive and understanding of each other and the things we're going through. And I think that as a society, we can definitely do a better job with that.
Along the notes of mental illness, especially in kind of today's society, have you guys ever had to deal with any major experiences like that? And if so, how did you get through those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say no pressure to share because that's a personal question.
No, we've been pretty open about like our just experience with mental health. I mean, me especially, like, there's been parts of time, recent history, like in our career, where I felt out of control of like the way that I felt like there was a dissonance between what people thought of me on the internet and how I felt about myself, and coming to terms with that, and and accepting the fact that, like, there's so many great things that come with people knowing who you are and the stuff that you make. And there has to be that balance of people that even people that like you might not like you for the wrong reason too. So, that was, it gave me a lot of anxiety for a long time. And, anxiety and depression are one of those things that they come and go. And I've said before, like, it's not about, like what you've done. It's how you feel about yourself. It, like, has nothing to do, like, a lot of people will look at and be like, what do you have to be, upset about, like, what should you feel bad for? And you're like, look, I'm very grateful, but I can't, you have this hard time. You're like, should I feel guilty for feeling upset or sad or whatever? And I think that, that's something that, more people should understand. And, you never want to be woe is me. But at the same time, you need to respect yourself and acknowledge, like, when you're not feeling down and when you're not feeling right, and, find your own, techniques for dealing with that and getting through those moments.
And that's a very reasonable thing to say, but it's a hard kind of mentality to come to. How did you get to that mentality?
I feel like, again, like, I'm really lucky. I always say the luckiest thing that ever happened to me was meeting Alex, because we've been so like-minded about what we want to do. And, we've been really good friends to one another. And there have been multiple times in our career where, like, I don't know if I was alone, how I would have dealt with it. Like, it's just like, there are definitely times where you're like, wow, we really fucked up this time, or, like, didn't see that coming. And, or like, when you get dropped from a label that, like, you think is, like, going to be you just signed, that's going to be your big stepping stone to where you want to be. And then you get dropped. And there's been a lot of big moments of defeat in our career that, like, you also look at each other and you're like, what else am I going to do than just keep trying this, and, like, that's, you you definitely carry around sadness, but I mean, the determination to keep going, we've been really helpful to have, like, one another. And I think just deep down inside of ourselves, just, like, not taking things too seriously, and remembering, like, what Alex was just saying, like, if I thought it's really important to, like, give yourself time and to feel gratitude, and just, like, remember that 10 years ago, like, all of this was such a dream. And just appreciating, like, how far you've come, even when you feel like you're in a dark, you get so wrapped up in, like, the now and how things might be affecting that, and you forget, like, where you've come from.
Yeah. Alex, have you had any similar experiences, or can you talk about how you helped Drew kind of overcome his mental health?
I probably caused most of Drew's mental health issues as much as I've. but yeah, I mean, I think the partnership thing is a big component of that, and I think that doesn't mean you have to have a partner in business, or, like, I think it's about surrounding yourself with people that are supportive and understanding and empathetic, and being able to speak to them, and also reaching out to friends that you think are struggling, and so on. I mean, when I was 13 and I did lose my dad, like, that was a really traumatic moment in my life where I felt like, as a 13-year-old, like, also, like, what is your, like, capacity as a human being? Like, the things you're thinking about on a daily basis are, like, pretty limited compared to what I'm thinking about now. But, you're like, all these people are coming to you, telling you, life's going to be okay, things are going to move on. And, not to let the, it's like, you can go left or you can go right. And you can use this pain and this experience to as motivation to get through life, or you can let it be an excuse, as to why you failed and made bad decisions. And for me, like, granted, as a 13-year-old, it's like, I didn't, like, go out next day and make Google, you know what I mean? But it was, like, little life decisions that you, like, decide along the way to, like, what kind of, do you want to put in the work? You know what I mean? Like, what's, like, you've lost the dad, like, how is that going to impact you, and not to become one of those numbers. So I think, like, trying to see, and there was no positives at the time for me with any of this, you know what I mean? It was more just, like, inside of me, I was like, I'm not going to become one of those, people that everyone's concerned that I'm going to become. And, you know, you go to therapy, there's no shame in doing those things. And there isn't as an adult either. So I think that you know, just try to, you know, persevere those hard moments and know that they get better, is an important thing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a news cycle lasts like 5 days. So if you can last like 5 days, basically, you're
Maybe we can lighten the room and go to the coffee break, and you guys can tell your funniest story or just a funny story.
My funny story. Those aren't appropriate.
Yeah.
Did you think of one, Drew?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a ton, isn't there? But again, funniest story.
Trying to think of like the music. I mean, I guess a good one, and this is like kind of a good life lesson in general, is also about like controlling your own destiny. And, you know, like, it's tough. You're gonna have people that are gonna tell you that you need to listen to them because they've done this before. But then there's also like your instinct and gut that like you should listen to above anything else. If you're a good, you know, like some people's instincts are really terrible also. So like, but in the case of us, I remember like when Drew mentioned this like novelty song we had, and we had an opportunity to perform it on American Idol season finale, which was like a huge fucking moment for any artist at the time. But we're DJs, and the song is a joke, and you know, the powers that be were like, this is a huge opportunity to like get your song out to millions of more people, which means more downloads, which means more money and exposure and fame and blah blah blah. And we were like, yeah, agenda. But like, yeah, with their agenda. And we're just like, yeah, but like it's a novelty song and we're DJs, and like I don't really get it. And they're like, no, just get up there and you know, you're just gonna perform the song. And we're like, yeah, but it's not performable really. And we were like, all right, well, we listened to them and we hit play and did this like stupid like bit, you know what I mean? That like, all things considered, I think it was like the most harmless way to do the song, but was, you know, just absolutely corny as hell. And, you know, and we got like absolutely roasted by it by like our, you know, the musicians that we respect and admire and society in general. And it was like, you know, we ended up everything fine in the end, which is again, like you can make mistakes and rise above them. But, you know, at the time we looked like goddamn idiots, and like we were like running around American Idol, you know, doing like, and it was just, you know, it was not a good look, and we should have just listened to our gut and put our foot down instead.
But I remember that was definitely one of those moments where we did it reluctantly, convinced of like the opportunity. And I remember like after it was over, I think we went and flew to Denver to do a show at what's that sick club in Denver? Beta. Then I remember just sitting on the plane being like, I think we really made a huge mistake there. And and we did the show at Beta and it was great. And the next day we flew to Brazil for an event. And I remember, do you remember that?
Yeah.
we were leaving to Brazil. We were leaving to Brazil and the plane's taking off, and literally as the plane's taking off, a DJ that was like really hot at the time, I won't say who it is, that I still am a huge fan of, that we had never met, that we really looked up to, tweeted the video of us on American Idol and was just like, damn, this is what happens when you don't know how to say no to your manager. And like, this is like as we're taking off, and we were like, oh no, here it goes. and then we like took off, and it was like a 10-hour flight to Brazil. And so our phones were just shut off. So we couldn't really react to it. We couldn't watch it happen. I remember just landing in Brazil and looking at our phones, and literally like every one of our idols was just basically making fun of us on Twitter. And it was just like, and you're on the other side of the world. You've never been there before. You just feel like your life is over. You're like, wow, like we got so far and we just blew it right there. And I remember that was definitely a moment where I think probably everyone in dance music was like, wow, like these guys, like this for sure isn't it. This for sure is the next thing, despite its popularity. I remember feeling just so defeated and like just in a hole. And it took a minute. It took like a year to climb out of that hole. Like we had to like have the confidence to be like, no, we're gonna put out music and it's gonna be awesome and people are gonna get it and we're gonna do something important. And it probably took 2 years to like really kind of win people back over. It ended up happening with this song called Roses, which was probably our real first hit. And that was like, and then I remember when we made it, we're like, this is the Chainsmokers sound. This is going to be our thing. And it ended up becoming a hit. But like, that took like 2 years of like everyone just thinking we were a joke, and it was like this kind of crazy time. We were also like this song Selfie was big enough that we were like flying around all over the world. It was massive in India and in China, and we're flying to Asia, playing shows. It's clubs full of people that like actually love that song, but at the same time, you don't feel good about yourself. And what a perplexing time that was. But I mean, we just decided like, what else are we going to do? We just got to do the damn thing and like keep putting out music that we think is dope. And eventually people will realize. And we were very fortunate enough to have another hit song. And then a few after that won people back over. And we had a second chance of showing people like who we were.
And in that moment when you were getting criticized by the people you looked up to, you said that it took a lot of grit and just confidence and determination to move back to the top. How did you get back that confidence, get that grit to do what you needed to do?
I think, yeah, go for it, Alex.
No, go for it, please.
I think, like I said, it was like Alex and I and our manager Adam were like this, it was just being like, look, like this really sucks. Like this is not the kind of attention that you want for your artist career when you really are passionate. And we had all these like great indie remixes, and that's what our fan base was before the song. The song just got so big and was so polarizing and different from our other music that like we were then defined by it. And we just were like, what else are we going to do? We're not going to become that artist. It's not the kind of music we make. We're also not going to give up. We've for even though that was the beginning of our career, we had been working our asses off for a year and a half, 2 years, like every day, all day, every day. There was giving up really wasn't an option. It was more just like, okay, now we just have more of an uphill battle to prove ourselves. And I'm honestly like really grateful for that scenario because it seems to keep happening. There are moments, there are like major setbacks that we've been faced with over our career where you're like, dang, like I don't know how we would have climbed ourselves out there unless we had like done it before in the past. Like there's been so many things where you're just like, it's, it doesn't change how much it hurts, but like, you have the confidence of like, no, like we're good people. We make good music, like we really care about this, who we are. Like, and if you just keep doing your thing, like people will realize that the truth always reveals itself.
Were there any other particular experiences that were as hard as that one or almost as hard?
So many.
For sure. Yeah. Like so many.
But I think like what No, go ahead. Go for it.
I was just going to say how there's been this really funny trend that's happened every time something amazing in our career has happened. It's almost immediately followed by a humbling moment, like every single time. I don't know, Alex, what you were going to say.
Yeah, I mean that's totally true. I mean, I think like what's funny about success is it doesn't get any easier as you move on. I mean, there's certainly parts of it that make other parts of your life easier, and there's it's a great process to start feeling like you're having success. But I think it depends what kind of human being you are. You know what I mean? And if you look to someone like an Elon Musk, who's one of the most successful people that's probably ever lived on planet Earth, this is a guy that is making real changes, one of the wealthiest people in the world, but like he has a chip on his shoulder constantly. And maybe that's the wrong expression for him, but he's like very motivated to continue to challenge himself. And I think if that's, those are the qualities that make really incredible people, which is also why we're so interested in like the VC space and finding those people, because, you can have success, but like it's not about like money. It's not like, oh, it's never enough money. It's about like, how far can I push this, you know, in myself to do real incredible things that, you know, I want to achieve. And I think that, you know, despite like those setbacks that inevitably happen to everybody, it's like you just kind of gotta, you know, put your head down. And like, I don't think there's anything, I think being the underdog is like a great position to be in, to be honest, which is where we often find ourselves. You know, people count you out. They you know, they don't expect you to deliver the way you're going to deliver. And I think like positioning yourself to, like that is a really strong tool to you know, motivate yourself.
Definitely. I want to move back to kind of your childhood. So, Drew, you had said that you went to Argentina and you started just spending all your time trying to learn how to DJ. Alex, you didn't really. I'm
back. He can hear you. He can hear you.
yeah. Good.
You had mentioned that you had just got into it and you were doing it at parties. How did you guys really learn how to get the hard skills that you needed to have to make songs, and what were those hard skills?
Yeah, well, that was mainly, I wasn't really trying to. I love DJs, and I wanted to be a DJ. But when I heard, you know, those artists in Argentina, and I heard dance music for the first time, I just wanted to know how to make it. And so that's what I really focused on when I came home. I was probably 18, and I did some reading online about what program would be the best, and I downloaded Ableton and was obsessed with it. Like, I was making sounds that I'd never heard before. I was learning about synthesis, and you know, it was a time when all these new great plugins were being made. But it was also at a time where it's like, I mean, obviously there's way more kids producing now, but at the time, like, and now they have all these resources that, you know, YouTube videos and tutorials and master classes and all these things that will like show you how to do it, and you can get started quicker. And when I started, like, I was like deep on forums, just like trying to like figure out like what synths did what, and I didn't have any money, so you had to be really careful about which one, you know, which gear you invested in. And like, I wasn't really ever like hacker enough to know how to like torrent good plugins without having them destroy your computer. So I never really did that. But I was just super passionate about just learning and finding a community of other kids that were trying to do it, which is, they were few and far between at the time. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of the beginning. And then when Alex and I met, you know, I had some production skills. I still wasn't amazing. Alex had a bunch of DJ gigs, and we were very passionate about the same music. We're like, let's team up and just sit in his, you know, studio apartment in New York City all day, every day, and just like try to make something that it could be our own sound that we were excited about. But it took, you know, like years of just like doing it all day, every day, and being like, we're going to do this. And we were really fortunate to have a lot of small wins along the way that kept us motivated. But it was really like, you know, a year and a half of like, I don't know if we'll ever make it. We're not making crazy money, and we're also putting our eggs in one basket, which I'd recommend to a lot of kids too, is like, if you really want to win at something, put yourself in a position where it's literally live or die. You know, like if we went into like, I remember like everyone thought about us becoming DJs in the beginning. They're like, that is the least practical career choice you could probably go for. But we saw an opportunity, and we put ourselves in a position where like, we are so fucked if this doesn't work out. And it's crazy what that motivation will do, you know?
Were there any steps similar or mindsets similar to that for you, Alex, that helped you kind of succeed and become as good as you are now?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think Drew's right. Like, I mean, I was a receptionist at an art gallery at the time, and I quit when Drew and I met like the next day, and it was like, all right, like this is all or nothing. You know what I mean? Like we got to really throw ourselves into this. And I think that's really important to like, you know, I don't think it like, as you become more successful, like diversifying is a great way to like expand into new areas and learn and, you know, use the synergies that you've been creating and to create other opportunities. But I think, you know, when you're younger, it's like, you really got to like throw yourself in. And like, I was lucky because I wasn't learning how to produce music. So that was really Drew's, you know, edge. I knew how to DJ really well. And I created like a social side component of it that like, you know, allowed us to make, you know, okay money in New York City at the time for our age And that was like something that was really interesting to me, was like fostering those relationships and creating environments that people like want to be a part of and love to do. And I think like that partnership between both of us is really what like drove our success in the beginning, because it wasn't like, hey, Drew, I need to sit here for 6 hours with you and like teach me everything about producing. It was like, you produce, I'm going to handle this side of the business, and we'll meet in the middle. And like those two forces together really worked. Like, I mean, I started playing piano now probably like 4.5 years ago. And, you know, I play 3 hours, 2 hours or 3 hours a day every day now. And it's like, you have to do that. Like if I want to become a great piano player, like there's no shortcut, you know what I mean? You've got to put in the hours. And I think that goes for anything. You know, everyone who's successful, what they do is really become a master of, you know, it's like the Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. Like this shit is real.
With regards to the social skills and building the right atmosphere, what did you do to make sure that you did that?
Drank a lot. No, I'm just kidding. Well, sort of. We're like, I mean, we're young. We're in our 20s in New York City, which is like, you know, was a great place to be. We were obsessed with dance music. You know, it was about making friends and treating people equally that you meet and continuing to nurture those relationships. You know, like obviously I wasn't looking at it so scientifically, like I need to reach out to Jim because it's been 2 weeks and like Jim might be valuable, but it's like people remember those types of things over time. And, you know, it's important. Like I can't tell you how many times we've, you know, done stuff and gotten offers for, you know, big events and whatever. And it's like a friend of mine that now is like the head of Turner or something, you know what I mean? And it's like, you don't know where people are going to land. So I think it's like, for me, it was always about like, be friends with everybody, try to be nice to everybody and relate, and like, they'll support you too. And, you know, as Drew and I became more successful musically, it was like all these people playing our music and telling, you know, that they were friends of ours and part of our, you know, these people all become part of your journey, especially like when we began to really take off. You know, we played every like shitty club and bar in the world basically. And, you know, those people continue to support you as you know, go up to the next level and next level. And next thing you know, you have all these, you know, amazing people behind you. And then you pivot to tequila, and we have a tequila company. And it's like, hey, all you know, bar owners that, you know, we played at, like, what do you guys think about carrying our tequila? And they're like, we'd love to, you know what I mean? You guys were always so great to us. And, you know, I think that is a big component of our
single-handedly the most important function of what we've been able to do. And Alex and I were both, you know, really social people and love to hang out and love to take care of people. But we remember like what it was like when you couldn't get into the club and when you weren't relevant and when no one like took us seriously, you know, in our industry, and we were like at the festival and no other artist wanted to talk to us. And we remember like so vividly like what that feels like. And I feel like we've made such an effort to make sure that if we can control it, no one in our sphere of social setting or influence or whatever feels that way. I think our superpower is being able to make people feel acknowledged. And Alex is really, really outstanding at staying in touch with people and remembering. And like, you know, I am once I'm in person, but like being just acknowledging people and not forgetting where you came from, and have empathy for the fact that like everyone is just trying to do their thing and be part of something. And unless someone's done something fucked up to one of us, we haven't cut anyone off. There's like, you know, like Alex was saying, for every arena that we've sold out, we've played probably 4 or 5 smaller venues in that city, and we've like hosted people before and after and invited other people into this, like our world, which is, you know, we've been able to create this really incredible like experience for people and pull them into this world that we're so like privileged to have become a part of, and sharing that experience with others has taken us very, very far. Just being nice guys.
Yeah. As our time comes to a close, I just want to zoom out and say, throughout your whole life, other than your selfie kind of experience, were there any other major failures and specific moments that you really think of when you kind of think of shaping yourself just at any point in your life?
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, uh, similar to the selfie moment, you think you do it once, you wouldn't do it again. But I had never sang before live ever before in my life. But I sang on this song, our song "Closer." That was the first song I ever sang on, period. And it came out and it blew up really quickly. It went to number one on Billboard within a couple of weeks, and it was right before the VMAs. And they asked us to perform it, but I was like, I never performed, I never sang on stage ever. I had never used in ears. My voice wasn't that great. And again, it was another huge opportunity that we just weren't ready for and didn't have the foresight to do. And, granted, that was like 4 or 5 years ago now, but like, that was my first foray as like a singer. Uh, and that sucked. I sounded like shit. I looked really stupid. And it was a massive song, and like that haunted me for a long time. And like I just can't believe how naive I was to think that I was ready for that moment. And I'm like really proud of the how much I've worked on my voice, and I feel like I've really settled into it now, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of shows where I'm singing now. But that was a moment where everyone was like, "Damn, this dude fucking sucks at singing." And rightfully so. And the internet teased me for that, basically still until till now. And that's like a really, I knew that after Closer, me singing on Chainsmokers records, because we're writing these songs, I want to be able to tell our story. That was going to be like a permanent thing for our band. And to have kind of like the one of the worst entrants into the live performance space was a really, really tough thing. Both for my confidence, both for our brand, and like, again, that's another like huge like setback that we didn't see coming.
And are there any kind of different mindsets or actions that you took in that moment to get over it and move on so that now you can sing and you are performing live?
Well, yeah, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vocal lessons and playing around with my voice in the studio and on tour and practicing and just being like, okay, if I'm really going to do this, let's do it right and get myself ready so like I can be, an exciting performer that people want to pay to come see, and like I can make people feel something. And I'm really proud of myself for how much I've grown, but it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah, I can totally make sense.
Yeah.
Alex, do you have any particular stories similar to that? Or
I'm pretty locked in my
different?
life. pretty locked in. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like there's not like big moments that come to mind. It's more just like, you're growing, you know what I mean? If you ask like yourself the question about like being in 2002, it's like, you don't know everything, and you don't know, sometimes you can think you're making the right decision and you're not, and things get taken out of context. You make poor decisions based on your own happiness, that other people don't see the same way. And I think ultimately, like, it's just about like, you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. Like, long as you can like learn from them and move on, that's like really all you can expect of people, these days. And it's like, no one is perfect, and we all have, horrible things that we all wish like never happened or never did. But like, you can take those lessons and learn from them, and become, ultimately a better person. And like, I think a lot of the times sometimes you need those things, because they, through experience is when you really learn about those moments. Like reading about them in books and seeing them in movies, it is one thing, but like going through them is an entirely different experience. So, just the truth. The older you get, kind of the wiser you get, but you still will make mistakes over and over again. And and that's part of being human.
Yeah. So my final question for you guys will be, now that you've become the pinnacle of success, how would you define success, and what's the next step?
Well, I'd say, I mean, the pinnacle of success, I don't know about that. But I think, success to both of us is like having both of us have such a thirst for knowledge, and interest in being involved in just impactful moments in culture, and being able to contribute in those moments. And I think success is having the freedom and ability and network to be able to participate in, so many of those moments that are going to be important for culture and feed your creativity, and help people.
Yeah, and I'd say, for me, success is like it's as simple as just progress. You know what I mean? And that's kind of broad, but success isn't necessarily like setting that goal and hitting it. It's like the movement towards that goal, because that goal is always going to change and move, and you don't know how. So if you can enjoy the progress that you make, no matter how small, and find pleasure in that moment, those moments, that's to me is like how you ultimately achieve success. Because setting a goal and reaching it, and then you're just going to realize that you now have to set a new goal, and there's going to be something else out there, and so that's a short-lived moment. So you got to just kind of enjoy the heading towards in that direction that you like, and if you're making progress, then you're doing great.
So on that note, what's the next goal for you guys then?
Well, the biggest goal is to, put out a very, an album that really reflects like how we feel about the world and, what we think is interesting in music, and hopefully people enjoy it, and it can be impactful, and that's definitely a huge part. And then, we have this VC fund, I'd say the same thing with our music career, with our TV and film production companies, just to create, pieces of work that are impactful and important and thought provoking, and, are important to some people. And then, with our fund, it's the same kind of thing actually too. It's like we want to invest in businesses that are going to be impactful, that are going to help our generation, that are forward thinking, that take care of people. And yeah, that's what's next.
Alex, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, like the success is a funny thing, and like for me, it's like we have a lot of amazing projects that I'm really excited about, and every time we enter a space that someone thinks that it's impossible for us to succeed, that is like the motivation for it. So I want to be a part of the journey of all these amazing founders in the VC world. I want to create, one of the best-selling tequila brands in the business. I want to, win an Oscar for a film we were part of, or I want to, have 15 platinum songs on our next album. I want to sell out an arena tour.
I don't even know if there's going to be 15 songs.
Yeah. I want to be happy with my, in my relationship with my girlfriend, and, enjoy the moments with my dog, and, keep my hair, and be a sexy 5-year-old, and so there's a million things. I can go. So all those would be cool.
So if someone was to listen to the last 5 minutes of this conversation and take away 3 things, what would those things be? The PowerPoints of our conversation, if you could sum it all up.
Have empathy.
Yeah, have empathy. I would say honestly,
for other people and yourself.
Yeah, and I would say one important, like more of a tool, is like create to-do lists. Like honestly, it's such a great thing. I think so for today's people, it's so the hardest part is like sometimes the starting something new. And if you just create a to-do list that sits in front of your face every day, and it's just like, you got to do this, you know what I mean? And just keep building on it. It's a really helpful thing. It helped me in school and in business. And it's just like a way, especially today where we have, I have such ADD, and, it's important to like see those goals that you're trying to hit. And it's not like, they can be really grand, but it could be simple as something like create company's name, you know what I mean? And just like get that done. And that's your first step towards your next, your $1 billion business. What's the third one?
You guys have one more? You don't have to, it could only be 2.
No, we can come up with
one.
I
think that's good. I think being kind to people and having empathy for everyone, and that everyone's trying to do something for themselves and their family, and just remembering that every time you meet someone, and I think is the most important thing that we've learned.
Perfect.
Works for me.
Thanks so much for the time, guys.
Of course, brother. Thank you.